Happy Tuesday, folks. It's meeting number 2 of the metrics analysis work group title pending. I have started recording. And so the first thing on the agenda is to look at the persistent links, but one of the action items last week was to develop persistent links. Ilya, do you have any update on the dashboard that you're going to make?
Yes, it's the first link.
Oh.
Let me share my screen.
Please do.
So we can have it recorded as well. So I haven't shared this across the board. I've just shared this with you so far because it's a definitely work in progress. I did a literal MVC iteration here as we've discussed, and I have a few questions about how we want to progress it from here. So as agreed, I've grouped them into SAS, self-managed, and LNR. Everything is, of course, applicable for changes. I've added kind of a red line for the asset. So the first one I decided to present was asset. Again, we can discuss this. FRT, NRT, for self-manage, same for LNR. And we have here the support we can review dashboards that we had, and one separate for LNR. Yeah, that's that. That's kind of the first iteration. Obviously, I have a few questions about how should we present, what else should we add there? Yeah, if you can see my questions there in the doc. Basically, we're talking about, do we want to add TTR there? Do we want to add FRT median, NRT median? Do we want to add incoming ticket volumes? Because I'm thinking that these are relevant ones that we might want to see in our main dashboards. That being said, we obviously have these in the secondary dashboard as well. So it's just a matter of deciding, do we want the support KPI want to be visible with these?
TC, opinion on TTR, median FRT, NRT?
I would, my gut says to shrink the scope to what we want to look at most importantly now, and then consider adding as we start to identify and take action on those pieces. Because once I start thinking about TTR, I start thinking about segmenting TTR into, how many percentage tickets in this time frame, and so median doesn't necessarily get us that way. So I just assume we probably look at that separately after we focus on the top areas that we started to talk about already, FRT and SSAT. And Ilya, just going through that, the support we can review tab, that provides the kind of overarching team SSAT, team FRT, right, and then individually. So I wonder if we can move that to the first tab, not just from a kind of, it says, here's the big picture, and then here's how it breaks down into self-managed, here's how it breaks down into .com. Like you've got it in the first couple of tabs. That way we can kind of look how we look in overall to start with, and then as a global team, and say, okay, now we can go into individual solutions. How are we looking?
Yeah. So we're talking about a totals tab, right?
Yeah.
That was sure. That was one of my questions there as well. The only thing about it is that for LNR, they have a caveat there because most of them don't have a plan. And most of our other reports, I do base on a plan. That's my only issue in aggregating LNR into the regular reports.
Yeah, I'm fine with keeping on our separate, because we've got a pretty focused, we've got a pretty focused effort all the way around on LNR. And it's probably the most impacted by activities that should be going on in product. So separating out that would be good.
And one more thing, SAS, do we want to split into 2 tabs, SAS account or SAS general, or do we want to keep them as SAS? I mean, the idea is that generally they are both the same people. So it's the same group in effect, but these are 2 completely different ticket forums, and potentially in the future, SAS general without all the free stuff is going to be very much kind of issues, bugs, and the admin stuff is still very much pure admin. So I don't know if we want to take that route.
I would say if the hypothesis is one over the other is driving challenges for the total, then we should probably look at them separately, right?
Okay.
If we're just, because I think then at that point, then that's where the time spent in each of those groupings starts to impact the overall ability to get ticket strength.
Yeah. So just about the support we can review, just so I understand, you want them to be the first tab, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking the totals, then we break it out into solutions and
then
KPIs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But the support we can review, because I see a comment here, I must have missed it. Anything you were thinking about that? Or just you said that like in the support we can review, we want to see totals and then the breakdown.
Just that, yeah. That was it.
Yeah. Now it connects. Thank you.
All right. Winning.
Yeah, so I was reviewing our KPIs as well as looking through the team meeting. So I kind of realized one thing that I'm unclear about. I'm not sure if it's because I missed the first part of the meeting last week. Is that I'm not too clear on what exactly are we looking at. So we have a number of hypotheses that have been listed down, but they don't quite map directly to a question statement, if you will. So it's kind of hard for me to sort of get in the right frame to sort of attack this hypothesis. So I'm just wondering, let me just look at the KPIs. So it looks like we are the key ones that we're looking at is categorized into self-managed and .com. And for self-managed particularly, it seems like response times are okay. Asset trend seems to be flat right now, but it's within range of the target. So for that in particular, are we actually trying to identify what's the normal band for this matrix so we don't, I guess, alert unnecessarily? And then for .com, it's quite clear that response times are trending downwards. The asset trend is flat as well, but it's definitely not within range of our target. So are we trying to identify why these response times are trending down, and are we trying to determine what we need to do and therefore measure to get closer to our asset target? Yeah, that's I guess a lot of questions bundled together, so I'm not sure where we want to start.
I mean the questions that you're asking are the questions that we're kind of trying to answer. Like, if you take a look at like our top level KPIs where everything is blended together, things look like they're not doing as well. And so the idea is to break things out in such a way that we can figure out what is making us not do well in aggregate, and develop alerting so that when things do start not looking good, we have an appropriate set of actions to take. So there might be, I mean, like you said, like .com or the SaaS FRT has been trending down. And so that probably just points to a resourcing problem. And so the action that may result will just be resourcing it better. But that's not necessarily like a short-term quick action. So I think there's going to be a set of actions that are more long-term, like resource appropriately, have a good staffing model, make sure that we have enough people working this class of tickets. And then there's going to be some developing the graphs and sort of like the playbook where it's like, this doesn't look good, look at this, do this.
Yeah, I'll second that, Lyle. I think it boiled down to, we can look really good at a very top level, but then have identify problems in subsets of what we're doing, and need to figure out what does that triggering look like, right? And without going into the detail. So for now, what's kind of initiated this is the downward trend on SaaS FRT. I mean, below 90%, I think, is a secondary trigger. I would say below 93% of target would be initial trigger. If we maintain, a couple of weeks of below 93%, it's kind of yellow status. If we go below 90%, that's red status. But that in and of itself may not necessarily impact the total look of support's performance to key KPIs as a global team, right? Because that percentage just doesn't impact the overall percentage enough. I would say similarly with SSAT is, if we start trending down, that's a trigger. If we trend down and maintain underneath 93%, I think that's another trigger. And so, then you start to look at what's underneath that, right? So first wave, and I'll just kind of realize what I'm thinking. The first wave is you look at it in total, say, yep, we're doing great as a global team. And then you look at the tabs. How are we doing in self-managed? Great, we're doing self-managed. How are we doing in .com? Oh, wait, SSAT for .com is down. It hasn't impacted necessarily SSAT for all of the team, but that's a trigger. We go and we just focus on what's happening with the SSAT for .com. So that's kind of how I envision the Russian doll aspect.
Is like .com self-managed the right slice, or do we need to take a look at like enterprise, mediums, like the other slices that we look at in our key meeting?
That's a great question, and I think as you peel it apart, the data becomes more refined. So yeah, if we look at .com and we say, okay, now we got to go look at where, what are the segments, what are the pieces and parts within .com that are influencing the total. Because I remember back, in the not too distant past, we were, not getting basically sufficient enough CSAT surveys from gold customers. So, one bad CSAT out of 10, and, we only got 10, so we are 90%. Well, that's hardly a necessary element, right? But as we get more, if that stays at 90% and every 1 out of 10 person is unhappy, then it's something to look at as the sample gets more significant. But to kind of answer your question, yeah, I think we need to then start segmenting off to see if we can be more refined in pinpointing the area of concern or the area of focus. Probably shouldn't use area of focus. That'll confuse us with the other areas of focus.
They don't exist yet, so whoever defines the term and uses it consistently wins it. And Wei-Ming had a counter proposal for it, so.
So just to be explicit here, so what I called out in points A1 and B1 and B2, be kind of like the framing questions through which we should all think about the hypothesis as well as when we generate hypothesis.
Wait, were you asking? I thought you were going to tell us the sentence.
Oh no, yeah, I was asking. So I did call out some areas which we are trying to work towards. So that's in A1, which is try to identify what's the user value and so on. And then there's point B1 and B2. So would these three, I guess, questions be how we frame, how we think about the hypothesis that we are working through, as well as how we generate hypothesis? Or are there other questions that should be top of mind that have not yet been put down? Because yeah, I mean, hypotheses are all designed to answer a question, and I kind of realize we don't have those questions explicitly put down, if you get what I mean.
It sounds like a good start. I mean, there may be other, so should we go through the hypotheses now with the view of your questions in mind and see if they match and see if we can pull anything else out?
Yeah, I think that's and Wei-Ming, I think that is the scope for now, right? And let's go and hypothesize and figure out how we prove or disprove, and then we can revisit. We've answered these questions. Revisit what scope do we need to pay attention to now? And it may be there is nothing, right? Maybe we're just performing at a well-oiled Formula One race car.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't put them in the form of questions in the doc. Let me pull out, share my screen, and we can go through the hypotheses we have. And that will be fun. Sharing the right screen. Are you seeing the metrics analysis doc?
Yep.
Okay, good. Normally there's the green bars and those just are not on there. Okay, so our guiding questions are usual bands for FRT, NRT, and SSAT, trying to identify why they're trending down and determine what we need to do and therefore measure to get closer to 95. So hypothesis number 1 was ticket volume is too high to consistently achieve FRT. This is a half try. I honestly didn't try very hard to answer this because we hadn't assigned anything out. Well, not because we hadn't assigned anything out yet, just because I wanted to take a look at the data. So I took a look at FRT performance for self-managed.com. And like Wei Ming noted earlier, for self-managed, we're pretty consistent across the board, well above target. So my conclusion, without looking at volume, is that we have enough engineers to achieve consistent FRT performance. For .com, we're below target since October last year, which is a bit of a shock to me, actually, embarrassingly. And so my conclusion there is that there's probably not enough. This doesn't seem like too wild of a conclusion. But I think there's probably some more analysis we could do here. But continuing on, if nobody has anything to say about that.
I would just go back to your earlier question about, do you break that down? What's the next level of granularity in looking at .com, right? Is it by segment? Is it by region? Is it by da-da-da? And that's, I think, the next step is, where is the ratio of people to ticket volume not good enough, right? Because it may be isolated to a particular region, maybe isolated to a particular type, I don't know, so.
I have a question about the ticket volume. So I think intuitively, the actual unit of work is actually number of responses rather than number of tickets. Does that actually make sense? Should we start looking at response volume perhaps instead of ticket volume?
So hypothesis, right? Depends on, there's only one response that matters for first reply, right? But I understand that if you're into next replies on a bunch of other tickets, right, then that may influence your ability to do a first reply. So it's kind of first, let's look at how far off are we missing the first reply time, right? And then bring that back down and say, is that because of the volume of replies we're having to do on all these other tickets, we're missing the first one?
Just want to add a small caveat. Most of our customers don't have a sales segmentation associated with their account. So that's a tough one to try to segregate for. Yeah.
And is that especially true in the SaaS? Or is it just across the board?
I checked actually yesterday after a key meeting. It seemed that half of our customers did not have. I didn't check by ticket form, but I can check.
Okay, that's a Salesforce or sales team challenge, I think.
Yeah, they're constantly adding more, but it's still, yeah.
Continuing on, hypothesis number 2 is a single portion of tickets is responsible for the overall SAG and FRT. Does this fit with our guiding questions?
I think so, right? That's that segment of, that's that segmentation step, right?
Mhm.
What's dragging down the overall performance, and is that, what segmentation is that?
So is this something that we want to investigate?
I think so, because there may be, for example, if FRT on LNR is included and it's dragging it down, then there are actions being taken that we may need to expedite, right, to address that. So that's my opinion.
Anybody want to counter?
Well, I think it's a worthwhile exercise to try to pinpoint tickets that are taking maybe longer. I know for an LNR as a fact that we managed to identify a few types of tickets that take way too long. For instance, the escalated tickets to sales, or so what I'm trying to say is that we can break down the ticket types to specific problem types, and maybe we can glean some information from there.
Yeah, that was actually what you just said was what I was thinking, the point above, where I wonder if problem type also might. So I guess for the rest of these, let's just go through each one and verify that they match with our guiding questions and that there's something we want to look at, and we can start to assign these out for this week to actually like gather data. Does that sound like a good approach?
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Number 3, folks on PT over summer have caused lags in performance. Is this something that fits with our guiding questions? I think it fits with.
Yeah, I think it fits. I think it fits from a ratio perspective, right? If tickets aren't influenced by customers going on PTO or whatever, and they kind of remain consistent, the more people, and because we have fewer people in general that are SaaS focused, that number will definitely impact the ratio of people to ticket availability. And again, especially if we go into specific regions and find that there's only 2 people and 1 person's on, you've lost 50% of the people looking at SaaS tickets. As an example.
About this one, thinking out loud, if we take the last 3 months working days, and then we collect individually from PTO Ninja all the vacation days from SaaS, then we can get some sort of a ratio of how many PTO we had. Does that sound something that is worthwhile?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a general need for being able to calculate employee availability ratios somehow. So
yeah. I mean, as an exercise, I can just simply collect from individual managers the PTO Ninja reports, and then just do kind of a 3-month kind of an aggregate, and then maybe extrapolate from that for the future.
Yeah, I think that would be worth validating if that's going to be a proven method to do and maintain.
I'll have to check if it works, but some time ago I set up any PTO that went on the support calendar should actually feed into a spreadsheet, so it might work.
Oh, if you have something like that. I mean, I can also set it up through Zapier, right?
It was set up as a Zap, and that's why I'm not sure it worked, because we went through the time where our account got deactivated and then got reactivated, and I don't know if my Zap got reactivated.
Let me check. But I can do it manually as a first iteration, just to see, I mean, for the last 3 months, I guess. And then for the future, we can try to set up some sort of a automated collection mechanism.
Yeah. Number 4, I said friends and family days have put us in a point where it's been difficult to catch up. Is this different enough from number 3 that is worth looking at, or should we roll it into number 3?
I think it's the same.
Yeah, I would roll it in. I think it would be eventually useful to let people know in the executive world that when we put these things together, support wants to participate, but it just basically becomes a PTO some other day. It's not really, it's just weird. And here's the impact to it.
Number 4, Ilya, do you want to tell us your hypothesis?
Let me read this.
That's what I've been doing.
Stuffing isn't. I don't remember saying that, to be honest.
This is kind of an element to the availability of resources, right? So whether it's PTO generated or we're just not asking people to, we don't have people spread in the right hours that correlate to the right volume of tickets.
I think this is slightly different in that. So I've been kind of investigating this separately before this working group, and I am starting to see data that suggests maybe we have the right, we have the capacity, it's just not evenly distributed throughout the day. I suspect in every region, support engineers kind of take the foot off the pedal towards the end of their day, and that results in a nasty situation during the region handovers where SLAs on tickets dips kind of low. So I think it's similar, but also a lot more granular in that we're looking at, we are not looking at overall availability. Instead, we're looking at, even if we do have the availability, what is that distribution of availability spread over our coverage? I suspect it might not be evenly distributed, and then we end up with hotspots where breaches are more likely to happen. Anyway, that's a theory I have right now. I don't have any data to back that up.
That's okay. That's the whole point, is to gather data.
Yeah.
Cool. So are we okay looking at this one, even if Ilya doesn't remember saying it? It's possible that you said it out loud and I wrote it down.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, there are tricky questions here, a bit about SLA, because when a ticket is open, doesn't necessarily correlate to where it will about to breach, and it might breach in other regions. So it's a bit of a complicated question, but it's worth investigating. Tom, before you head out, I just want to ask, it's about a different topic we had in the discussion previously. Do we want to see green, yellow, red bars kind of crossing through, signaling what is our minimum, medium, or high thresholds in SSAT, for instance? You're on mute, sorry.
Sorry, trying to find my right screen. Rebecca, I got my one-on-one with Rebecca. She's texting me too. So, I mean, I don't know. I leave that to the team. I mean, it does put a visual together to, you know, what we need to look at, rather than saying, well, we've got our target listed. Let me see where it's at, and does it associate to the trigger? So I think it does, from my perspective, it does visualize it better so that we can see it. So
yeah. So yeah, okay. I'll work something out. Thanks.
Okay. Got to run, y'all.
Hey, Donik. Thanks for joining.
Hey, sorry, I'm a bit late. Just had to quickly run out.
Okay.
I was assuming you would just blame me for not putting the Zoom link in the right place, which is totally a right thing to do.
No worries. I was physically not at my desk, so totally my fault.
So what we're doing right now is we're going through the hypotheses. Wei-Ming gave us some guiding statements, and we're taking a look to see if they match up with sort of the purposes for the group. And then the next thing we'll do is actually assign these out for folks to investigate and report on. Right now we're on number 5, and I hypothesized that adding LNR has drawn resources away from the rest of the queues that haven't been renewed or replenished. This seems like it fits with guiding statement trying to identify what FRT and NRT are trending down. Is this worth looking at?
I guess we can actually go and check the figures. We can go and look at the people who are working in the queue and maybe just seeing what form of tickets they're doing. So even if they're saying they're doing 50%, is that accurate? It doesn't matter if they're maybe doing more LNR than the rest, but it would be good to know that, hey, actually 60% of the tickets that they're doing are actually LNR and only 40% is for the other queue. So we actually can get the data on this. So yeah, I do think that's very valid to get. Some people I've seen, they say they're busy ramping up on LNR. So even though the goal is to get to 50-50, they're still maybe like 80% in the other queue and just 20 in LNR. So I think it would be good to get some real numbers on that and just see where people are at. Yeah.
So we're thinking who makes comments on a specific type of ticket forum would be considered as working actively on those tickets. Okay.
This is kind of an interesting one because Wei-Ming said earlier, like the unit of work is potentially a reply, not a ticket. But when we're working cross queue, is that still true? Like if we're talking about 50% of time, that doesn't necessarily correlate to 50% of number of replies.
True. I mean, to Wei-Ming's comment, I believe that it's not either, it's not or, it's both. So ticket volume is relevant and the amount of public updates is relevant. It's just in different spheres. About when to calculate 50% of work for LNR, it's a very tricky question, but I think Sean had deflected that by saying that we're going to be using 100% of the time. So I don't know if that's a worthwhile kind of investigation to be had, if I understood your comment correctly.
It was just a thing in my mind.
Yeah, I get you.
I'm just thinking public replies, and they even say internal comments are things that take time, and a lot of people that are getting up to speed in the LNR queue would leave internal comments instead of public replies, and that is time that they're spending investigating and then leaving a comment. So I think it's fair to say that they're if you're taking 10 minutes or so to investigate and leave a comment, that's still work that time you're spending on LNR instead of the other queue. So it makes sense for us to take that into consideration. When we're working out how much time is someone spending on which queue. I think that's just to answer the question of that the hypotheses that queues haven't been replenished, so it's taking away from those. And I want to say yes, that is the case, but to what extent I'm not sure. And I think looking at public replies and internal comments even as a measure of someone spending time could be useful.
It's a good note. Number 6, I was saying FRT Hawks spending more time on needs org ticket is causing a dip in performance. This is a common complaint from FRT Hawks. That needs org tickets, like the workflow is quite different than actually answering the tickets, and it's time consuming, and there's a lot of them. Worth taking a look at.
Do FRT Hawks actually spend time on needs org when there are first response tickets still around in the queue? I thought most support engineers would actually do the responses first and then look at needs org as a secondary task.
Well, I guess they can't reply on the ticket before they organize it because they have to check the organization, the licenses.
I think what Wei-Ming's saying is that we wouldn't even look at the needs org tickets until we have the ones that already have orgs. And so they're spending enough time getting the first replies out that needs org isn't even a consideration, because we're looking at the ones that have orgs already, then adding the orgs after the fact. Is that right, Wei-Ming?
Yeah. I mean, that's how most people do it in APAC. I'm not sure in the other regions, because the engineers here tend to kind of ignore the needs org queue until there's a need to actually look at it. So
I wonder how many tickets breach once we take a look at the needs org. Because I mean, we see that in on SaaS a lot, where someone will identify the customer, see it's a SaaS ticket, change the form, add the customer, and be like, "Oops, sorry, I breached." Which I mean, like, sorry, we breached. We should know who our customers are, but.
So you mean we breached on the same ticket that was just organized, or
Exactly,
on the other queue?
So as soon as we know who the customer is, it gets the right SLA form, say it's a gold high, and we're at 6 hours. As soon as we add the ticket, or as soon as we add the ticket tags and get it in the right form, then it breaches immediately.
Well, I'm actually not sure if the SLA, I'm not sure if the SLA, there is not, well, I might check for ticket tags, but again, I'm not sure if the SLA starts counting from the beginning of the ticket or from when you added the tag. So it's possible that when you add the tag, it only starts calculating SLA from once you've organized it. I'm not sure.
I'm quite sure because I've done it.
Yeah.
I see.
Sorry, my question is there a way to actually measure this? The phenomenon where when you change text or where you change or when you associate a organization, it breaches right away. Because I mean, anecdotally, there have been people who are newer to NeedSoc who have been doing this, and they don't realize that this is happening. So it's not just support engineers, managers are kind of looking into this as well, and then they associate it, and then it breached by 8 hours right away. So I'm just thinking if we can measure this exact thing, then we can kind of put like a not a value, but we can show how NeedSoc is hurting our KPIs, and I think that itself is a pretty valuable insight to have.
So when a ticket is in needs.org, it obviously has a tag of needs.org, but that one gets removed. So I might be able to see that. No, it's not a status field. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud.
We don't, since we're at time now, I want to make our way through the next 4. And then we can dive into the data. No, I'm right there with you. I want to know it all right now. If anybody needs to leave, feel free. I want to respect everyone's time, but I think it is a worthy exercise to just get through these last few. Number 7, adding resources more dedicated to US Federal has reduced the overall capacity of the team. Is that true? I think it seems true, but it might be nice to measure the effect. Catalan had one in number 8. Moving to ticket assignment has created an environment where SEs aren't incentivized towards global metrics. I should have actually linked the Slack thread where this was discussed because it was a much larger thought. But the idea was that people are very focused on the tickets that have assigned to themselves and aren't as aware of like what's going on. So that it would. Does that make sense? I guess the hypothesis here would be it would affect more of NRT than it would be FRT, since we have a role for FRT.
Well, and we have the SLA hooks for NRT, I guess, so. Again,
Wei Ming, what do you want to say? Do it.
No, I'm just wondering how we're going to measure this. Like, I think it's worth measuring, but I'm not sure if it actually fits in the scope of this group right now. Seems a bit related, but kind of not very closely related.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit squishy. I do want to take a look at it. I think it will be hard to measure, and since our NRT is actually looking pretty good, especially for self-managed, I'm not too concerned.
Exactly, because self-managed are the one who are assigning mostly, and in self-managed we have great FRT, NRT. Yeah, okay.
Number 9, by way of Will and Greg, ticket assignment doesn't work for all regions and high priority tickets, and these are the most likely to breach as a result.
I think it's same as point 8. It's worth knowing and worth measuring, but I'm not sure if it's actionable or measurable. So yeah.
It's okay. I can check all regions and then see if they have a higher. Yeah, it's measurable. We can see again for .com and for, well, actually just for .com, I guess, because self-managed we just don't have any breaches, barely any.
Yeah, I mean, I would deprioritize this one. I don't think it's.
Yeah.
If we come to no conclusions and everything else, then let's take a look.
Yeah.
This is something that we need to separately handle. Is I don't think it's clear what we do for these all regions high priority tickets that have an assignee, and that's been echoed a lot, but outside of the scope of what we're trying to accomplish here. And then the final one is number 10. I was hypothesizing that engineers are spending most of their time on tickets assigned to themselves. So in the how to work on tickets workflow, I forget, is that the right name for it anymore? Names are hard. But we suggest that the engineer should keep a balance. 50% of replies should be on tickets assigned to yourself. 50% should be on tickets that are either that are assigned to other people. And so my guess is that similar to number 8 is that folks are not striking that balance. We're not doing 50-50, we're some measure above that. And if we got closer to 50-50, we would have better overall results. Certainly
so we are saying that assigned tickets would get better resolution time. Sorry, better breached ratios. Over time.
I mean, now I'm hypothesizing on a hypothesis, but I think that the SLA Hawk bot would go off less often if we had the balance better. Because in that world, everyone is acting as SLA Hawk by working on the next most urgent thing and focusing less on the things that are assigned to themselves individually.
So to put it in different words, what you're saying is that because engineers spend their time on tickets assigned to themselves, they kind of accidentally or unintentionally ignore tickets which are soon to breach. Okay.
But if we have a limited amount of time, then we'd probably want people to prioritize the tickets assigned to themselves than the tickets assigned to others.
We always want to prioritize the next most urgent thing, right?
Okay.
So certainly we don't, like, we want everyone to take care of their tickets, but if your last reply is, I'm looking for additional data, I'll be back with you tomorrow, like that's okay, as long as you get back with the customer tomorrow. And if you focus your time on somebody else's ticket that's going to breach soon, that's going to cause our metrics to go up. Like, because those are, I would assume, tickets that haven't had the communication that explains sort of like what the state of the ticket is, what's going on. It's customers who are wondering what's happening. But I mean, I think that if everybody is perfectly selfish and takes on only their capacity and answers their ticket within SLA times every time, then that system works. And if we have total chaos and everybody only looks at the next most urgent thing, then that could also work. And it did work in a much smaller team. But I think the third world is what's been expressed in our workflow is take care of your tickets, be aware of what's happening globally, and do the next most urgent thing. It sounds like this hypothesis has gone off the rails.
Yeah, we're tackling the assignment model efficacy, which I agree. There are questions there. I'm just wondering if that's measurable, like we've discussed before.
Agreed. So I
I
think,
mean, okay. if I'm trying to kind of oversimplify, do we have some sort of an agreement that incoming ticket volume? Oh, okay. Bigger question. Do we agree that we should focus our efforts on .com?
based on what we've
Our
seen so far,
investigation. Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So that narrows down some of it. Then, do we want to try and first analyze what I feel to be, and I think you also agree, Lyle, Wei-Ming, tell us what you think, incoming ticket volume ratio versus number of engineers available for the queue? Is that our like most likely hypothesis, that actually the ticket volume, incoming volume, amount of public updates, federal taking, LNR taking people, PTO taking people out, so kind of overarching amount of people versus amount of tickets for .com affects the trend of .com tickets, right?
Yes, resource allocation.
Resource allocation for .com. Okay. Because I'm trying to think in my head how we can prioritize it. If we don't find something in resource allocation, we can try to go down into deeper rabbit holes.
Yeah, I think so. I know in APAC, the bus factor for .com is actually pretty low. Like I know if Jerome goes off, there's pretty much no one covering the early part of APAC at all. So yeah, bus factor is really bad in APAC for certain times of the day.
Alrighty. 10 minutes over now, but this is the last thing. Hopefully it'll be fast. I want to go through these and then assign them to individuals to take a look at during this week. So who wants to take a look at number 1? I've already started. I'll volunteer. Does anybody want to join me?
Yeah, I'll with you.
Number 2. Does anyone want to take a look at number 2? I can take it.
Yeah.
Don't take them all, Ilya.
No. Just the ones that I know how to do it.
Number 3.
Oh, that I already think I took. But if somebody wants, the idea is just to take the PTOs from all managers and then do kind of a calculation.
I don't mind doing this, but I have no idea how to do the Zaps and stuff. So
okay, yeah, I got it, because I also have the Zapier access. I can take this one too.
I'm gonna put Wei-Ming on there too.
Yeah, put me on that one too.
Okay, so we can work on this together. I can show you also Zapier access, and I can show you what I'm doing with Ninja. Cool.
Wei-Ming, do you want to take number 4 since you already have some initial data?
Yeah, I'll take this one.
Good, because I have no idea what I said there also. Sorry.
Number 5.
I don't mind looking at that one. I'm not sure if I am allowed to have stuff assigned, but I don't mind looking at that one if that's.
You're allowed. If you put something, if you assign yourself something, we're gonna ask you about it.
Okay.
You're definitely allowed to work.
Okay, cool.
I think you know enough about reporting to pull this off, but if you need something, ping me, of course.
Yeah, this is a group effort. If you ever feel like you don't know what to look at, that's why we have the channel. That's why we're working together. Number 6. Does anybody want to take a look at that?
I know little about this.
I can do it. And I will take a look at, I will ask James to take a look at number 7.
Somebody with access.
Cool. The last thing, one note, I'm off next week on Tuesday. And so I don't know would somebody else be willing to chair?
Yeah. Don't see a reason why not. I mean, actually, we have quite an effort here. So we might want to cancel next week and then leave enough time to investigate all of these.
That works for me.
I mean, there is enough work here, I think, for a couple of weeks, definitely. as a group effort for sure.
So just to be clear, that what you're signing up for with your name on one of these is you're going to take a look at these over the next 2 weeks, and you're going to present some data and an initial, if there is any kind of conclusion, whether it's positive, negative, or needs more data, like that's where we want to get to on each of these by the next time we meet. Cool. Our exit criteria I updated in our handbook working page. I'll do another update today. But just I want to remind everyone what they are, because actually I forgot what they are. Let's see. Let me pull up the page and I'll share. Should have it up and it should have it linked in the doc. So exit criteria is defining conditions under which this work group will be reformed. We still have not done any of that. Create a dashboard that exposes metrics and targets that will trigger actions on part of the support team. We're probably like 40% there, I think, as a result of Ilya's work.
Yeah.
And document common hypotheses and expose data to support and refute them. That's what we'll be working on over the next couple of weeks. Are there any other exit criteria that we should consider that have come up as a result of today's discussion?
Do we want to see actual improvement of metrics, or I think that's overly ambitious?
I would avoid adding that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we want to see that and exposing this hopefully will have that effect, but that's not exactly what I want to get out of this working group. I want to get a more generalized set of tools.
Okay. Just wanted to be on the same page. Cool. That's what I'm thinking too.
Great. Appreciate the extra time, folks. Sorry about going over. We'll do better next time. But...
No, this is great. Thanks for sharing, Lyle.
All right, let's call it. Have a good day, y'all.
Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Bye-bye.